The Word a Day wall acts as a vocabulary builder for this grade 3 class. Each day the class will review a word, say it, and make connections to the word. For example, for the word pounced, the teacher may put it into a sentence like, "The panther pounced on its prey." The teacher may then ask, "Have you ever heard someone use the word pounce?" Following, the class would have a discussion about the word and make connections to it in their lives. The Word a Day wall goes beyond what the Grade 3 curriculum asks. The Grade 3 curriculum asks for the students to extend their sight vocabulary to include predictable phrases and words related to language use. Moreover, the students will be pushed to go beyond their current reading levels and comprehension abilities by adding and exploring more complex words. The program of studies also asks for grade 3 students to combine and rearrange existing information to accommodate new ideas and information. The Word a Day wall assists in this as it is asking for students to make connections to previous learned words and scaffold their knowledge and vocabulary. Cunningham and Allington state, "When a student sees or hears words, their brain makes connections to those words. They do not think of definitions." With this in mind, I like the Word a Day wall because it isn't asking for students to regurgitate information. It is asking them to create and connect to expand their vocabulary. Cunningham and Allington also state that vocabulary is critical to reading comprehension. Of course, I agree with this and believe the Word a Day wall assists in this development. Furthermore, I believe that it will assist in students' communication skills. The more words a student has to communicate with, the more articulate they become. This progression and development will enhance learning in all subject areas. Overall, the Word a Day wall is an excellent motivational and engaging tool for students to learn vocabulary together. This is a topic wall. It reviews the multiple types of written form and how they communicate information and how they are organized. The types of writing listed are labeling, notes, letters, lists, paragraphs, and recipes. All of these means of text are important to student learning. Many students strictly view that books are the only written form. Utilizing this wall and having a class discussion can expand student understanding of how information can be communicated, and most importantly, communicated appropriately and in the correct situations. This is an important facet of this wall, as the program of studies asks grade 3 students to choose appropriate forms of oral, print, and other media text for communicating and sharing ideas with others. This wall also opens up discussion for what are some key components when reading these forms of text. For example, when looking at the letter, the teacher may ask the class, "Where should I start reading? Why did the person who wrote this put a date on it? And why is that important? When do we write letters?" For a list, the teacher may ask, "Why is the title important? Does it matter how many things I have on my list?" Or why do we use lists? I would have liked to see social or science texts on this wall, as the ability to navigate and read informational texts with a preconceived intention is very important for students when gathering information. Nonetheless, the topic wall is a wonderful tool for discussion and for students to refer back to. Again, I really like that the wall allows students to make connections with self to different forms of text. This is a simple yet effective story anchor chart. This anchor chart is intended for a grade 3 classroom and is broken down into 3 key components, those being a beginning, elaborative detail, and endings. Following these 3 components, they are dissected into why and how do we create these things. Each broken down portion provides options for the students to try in their own writing. For example, an ending. How do we end stories? Maybe it's due to a feeling, a memory, a wish, or a decision made by a character. Creating an awareness of the fundamentals of story writing is an important piece of students' written development. To be specific, the program of studies asks grade 3 students to experiment with a variety of story beginnings, to choose ones that best introduce particular stories. The program of studies also asks grade 3 students to add sufficient detail to oral, print, and other media texts to tell about setting and character to sustain plot. With this in mind, the anchor chart is a wonderful tool, especially to create as a class as students become more engaged and enriched with the creation of story structure and writing. As previously stated, a strong vocabulary is extremely important to a student's ability to communicate ideas, questions, and solutions. Without a knowledge of correct words and vocabulary, students cannot explore and learn to their fullest ability. The importance of vocabulary overarches into all subject matter, including science. This is a photo of a vocabulary wall that is specific to the Grade 3 unit, Testing Materials and Design. On the wall are some key words that students need to fully engage in meaningful work. As you can see, there are 10 words on this wall. Cunningham and Allington suggests that collecting 10 words that students have consistently come across in work and text and highlighting them is an excellent strategy to use as a cue for students. So when students are reading and they see these words, a light bulb goes off and they know that this is important and relevant information. Of course, as the unit goes on, this vocabulary wall can expand, but 10 words is a manageable number for students to refer to. Another excellent way to create the vocabulary wall is have the students come up with their own definitions and post them up. Putting meaning of terms into their own words is a powerful strategy to develop a deeper personal understanding of concepts. iPick is a strategy for students to pick books that are suitable for their reading level and align with their interests. It is a simple, quick, and effective strategy that students can use when picking a book. P stands for purpose. Why do I want to read? P is asking the students to question what their intention is. Is it for pleasure, research, or a project? I stands for interest. Does the book interest me? Once the student has chosen why they are reading, they must choose a book that engages and interests them. This might entail the student reading the back of the book, looking at the table of contents, or skimming the photos in the book. C stands for comprehend. Do I understand? After skimming the book, students must self-assess. Do they understand what the writer is saying? Lastly, K. Do I know most of the words? Students again must self-assess. How many words am I getting? Can I make sense of the writing? I like this strategy because many students strictly look at the aesthetics of books and forget about the content. This is a quick strategy that helps students make finding a book more meaningful. The Program of Studies for Language Arts desires that all students become critical and opinionated readers that can create connections to self, the world, and other texts. To do so, students must develop an understanding of how to pinpoint these types of literature. And for a grade 3 student, iPick is a very good starting point. This is a self-assessment wall using the school district's grading scheme. This wall is positioned up at the front of the class so students can refer to it all the time. Having the wall up holds students to be accountable for their work, as the standards are clear with examples. The grading scheme is as follows. Beginning, which would mean that the student does not understand yet, their work does not show craftsmanship or understanding of the task at hand. Next is acceptable, which means the student is somewhat starting to get it, their craftsmanship is acceptable, and their work somewhat shows an understanding of the task at hand. Next is proficient, which means the students understand, their craftsmanship shows skill, and their work shows significant understanding of the concept. Lastly is mastery. Mastery means the student completely understands and can use this understanding as a foundational piece for higher level thinking. Their craftsmanship is also superb. This assessment wall applies to all subject matter. I like the idea of having a student-friendly assessment wall as an excellent tool as it encourages students to be assessment-capable learners. This is an extremely important quality for students to learn early on as it is a skill needed not only for reading and writing, but also science, math, social, and art. Cunningham and Allington explained that assessing writing is difficult as it is a complex skill for anyone, not just students. When assessing students, it is important to get multiple pieces of evidence to have a robust platform for assessment. In addition to this, Have assessment strategies that allow students to be aware and focused on specific goals like descriptive writing. This grade 2 class has formulated a rubric together to represent the standards for descriptive writing. The class uses birds to differentiate between the different levels of writing, those being beginning, acceptable, proficient, and mastery. For beginning, the class uses a parrot because the parrot simply repeats. For acceptable, the class uses a duck because a duck follows, but does not produce unique work. For proficient, the class uses an owl because the owl represents wisdom. And lastly, for proficient, the class uses a hawk because the hawk sees all and knows all. This rubric follows the same format as the grading scheme wall previously shown, as it provides examples to support the standards of descriptive writing. Again, this is another excellent tool for the class as it is created in collaboration with the students, and it also targets the program of studies, which asks for students to create a variety of sentence patterns in stories and in other texts. In this grade 3 class, they are building a wall full of comprehension strategies for reading the book, The Story of a Seagull and the Cat Who Taught Her to Fly. The two that they have already posted are prior knowledge and visualizing. Prior knowledge is a strategy to use already known content to help the student comprehend a book. For example, maybe the book is a series and the book refers back to the first book. The student would be able to comprehend the statement because they could refer back to the first book of the series. Or maybe there is a scenario where a character is experiencing some kind of emotion or feeling, like scraping their knee. Many children could make this connection to their own experiences. Visualization is the second strategy posted. Visualization becomes an extremely important part of student comprehension, as this is when they transition from picture books into chapter books where images decrease. Visualization is a strategy where students have to use their brain TVs and use the language in the books to create corresponding images. Some other comprehension strategies include drawing conclusions or predicting, and evaluating the book and asking yourself what you liked about it or what you didn't like about it. Cunningham and Allington suggest that these strategies do need to be taught to students, but the main idea is that these strategies become second nature to the students when they read. With this in mind, having a wall to introduce and remind the students to use these strategies is a good starting point. Upon self-reflection of my developing practice in language arts and with my mentor teacher, I feel this is an area that I excel in. This is not to say I have full confidence, but I feel very good about the direction I am heading in. I still see gaps where I could use instructional strategies like Café or Daily 5 that I did not get the opportunity to use this practicum. As for my strengths, I can see that I am developing a strong sense of creating learning opportunities that allow for engaging, rich learning experiences, scaffolding knowledge, and using technology to enhance student learning. Throughout my practicum, I taught language arts daily and was able to create descriptive writing and poetry mini units that beautifully connected together. I was able to incorporate the strategy of using our 5 senses to write and create poetry and descriptive entries. Students began to see a connection and see how this strategy overlaps into other written forms. I was able to make every lesson different. Some days we would write, other days we didn't, but the lesson was just as powerful and promoted deep thinking. The areas in which I need to work on would be pacing my lessons. I still forget to write down the time that I start the lesson, which throws off my instructions as I cannot give an accurate amount of time for student work and reflection. The other area I want to work on would be promoting self-monitoring. When we had work that needed to be edited, I asked the students to come show me so I could edit. I think this simply comes down to me lacking trust in the students' capabilities. But also, this is a routine that needs to be implemented over time, just like the Daily 5 would. Peer editing won't work fully the first time. It needs practice from the students and the teacher. In summary, I am proud of the progress I made. Even the areas I struggled in, I am able to reflect on them now and make plans to correct them for my next practicum. I was excited I learned how to progress topics into more complex forms, and I really feel I made an impact with the students' writing as my goodbye card was a poem.